PowerShell custom object. What is it and why would you want to use it while using PowerShell? Let's have a look. Hi and welcome, my name is Kamil Protyshin and I've been making videos about PowerShell for over a year now. Therefore, if you are PowerShell using any formal capacity, please subscribe because there is more and more videos coming about the tech, as it keeps getting me excited for the past 4 or 5 years now. And today's video marks a little bit of celebration because we've passed a mark of 500 subscribers, which, well, I didn't really anticipate that will happen. You know, I thought that would be another boring channel about a guy talking about technology and other stuff. So thank you guys for that. But here, coming back to the actual PowerShell custom object, let's have a look. What is it and why would you like to use it? And I tried to look for the official documentation, which surprisingly wasn't really that great. So I Google searched a little bit longer and I found actually a great post by Don Jones on PowerShell forum. And if you haven't heard about Don Jones, it's the guy who wrote a couple of really great books. I mean, more than a couple, but probably the ones that actually really get you going with PowerShell in the PowerShell month of launches. So if you like to read and learn, check his books. But anyways, let's look for his post on the forum. PSCustomObject is a type accelerator. It constructs a PS object but does so in a way that results in a hash table keys becoming properties. PSCustomObject isn't an object type per se, it's a process shortcut. The docs are relatively clear about it, and here's the link. PSCustomObject is a placeholder that's used when PSObject is called with no constructor parameters. And what does it really mean to us? That means that we can pretty much build it or construct it, create PSCustomObject as we will create a hash table, but having all the joys of having a PowerShell object with methods, with access to properties, and etc. etc. So let's actually dig in how to actually do it in the code. Okay, so here's the script, and if you would like to download it, it is on GitHub. Check the description. I will post the link there, so you can download it and follow along yourself, because I will be literally doing everything what's in that script on that video. So I'll be just, presenting it and explaining on the way. So how we actually create a PowerShell custom object? We literally, if you look at this part, and if you've seen my previous video about hash tables, that construct will probably look very familiar to you, because we obviously declare a variable, then we do @ sign, and we do curly brackets with my property name and the value in it, isn't it? The only difference here is that at the front of it, we add PSCustomObject in the square brackets. And this is the type accelerator I mentioned a bit earlier on. So that pretty much says, I want you to build this object with these properties. That's literally what it does, what it says. This is a shortcut. There's a longer way, all the way we could use for the new object, but I'm not even gonna bother to show you this because this is modern, this is preferable way of doing that. So let's build it. So I run this, and at the moment, the details are here about my pretty much cat, Mr. Fiber. Usually he's not on this video, so I cannot show you him, but I promise if he ever will be sitting next to me, I will show you my cat. But now we're going, so we created the object, and when you actually run it, probably straight away we can see a difference that actually rather than having a bunch of properties on the left and the right, now they are formatting that way. And that's probably seems more familiar for you when you were using normal PowerShell commandlets. And this is why, because this is the object. And we can access that properties pretty much like we did with hash tables, so I'm not gonna talk more about that. Okay, but what we can do, for example, with this, we can, because this is already an object, we can straight away convert it to other property types. Yeah, when we work with PowerShell, I don't know, even importing data from SQL, from text files, from anything, we usually strive to get them into the object, because when we have them as the object, we can actually do manipulation, we can work with it, and once we're done with this work, we can actually go and export it to the other format like JSON or CSV files on etc. And exporting to JSON is very much preferable, let's say, over CSV, because we can have nested properties like with hash tables, and JSON supports them. You will just create another array for us, while CSV won't, because it's flat. So you will actually see under the value, we see something like system.objects or something like a type name that actually it's there. It doesn't resolve them properly. So yeah, so for example, what we can do if we want to save, let's just create like a sample path. And now we're taking our object, we're piping to convert to JSON depth 99. And I just put it very high number here for the reasons if we will have an object with multiple nested properties, they at some point, I don't remember what's the default, but at some point PowerShell will stop resolving them. So what we really want is to just grab all of them. So I just put that high number. You often don't need to do that, but in case you will see weird type names, values, rather than actually what's supposed to be there, that's probably because def is not high enough. And then after that one, we just saying go and save it to this file we just specified. So let's try that one. And now let's try to import it. So we just import it with get content just to show you this is actually a JSON file. And we can see that this is certainly a JSON construct. Yeah, we have curly brackets, we have property names in quotation marks, and we have colon, and then followed by the value, followed by comma, and etc. etc. So what we can do now, because it's JSON and PowerShell has a built-in commandlet for JSON, you can just convert it from JSON, and that's how it's done. So in other words, JSON is probably internet and APIs. The moment you can do that, you can pull information from API and read it and have it in PowerShell as the object. But okay. Let's move on to properties. So obviously we can access properties like I just did before. So we can absolutely do it that way, or we can dynamically specify them. So if I, for example, create a variable called prop and then type, and now we ask for object.prop, which in that case will be type. So I can absolutely dynamically create properties and resolve them. What else? And that's probably where the first, like a major difference comes between hash tables and PowerShell custom object. Is that if you want to actually add more properties, we need to do it in that way. We need to pipe it to add member, we need to specify the type, and because we can have multiple ones, in this video I'll be showing you node properties, which are literally values per se, but you can also have methods, or you have aliases that will be properties, bring an alias to another property. So there's something that is not user-friendly to something more user-friendly, or etc. You can use aliases. Then we specify the name of our property and actually what's the value. And yes, I know we shouldn't have properties with the space behind them, but I just want to show you that we can have them in case we have to. It doesn't often happen, but yes, sometimes you have to have them. That's how we can do it. So let's try add and now let's just try to retrieve it. And certainly we have favorite snack, dental treats. Yeah, my cat loves them. Now, a word of caution. If we already added that property, if we look at this object, we have now favorite snack. And now if I try to add another one, PowerShell froze. Yeah, you cannot do that because you already added one. So it might be, especially when you're scripting or doing something, it might be worth checking for that condition because it will throw, it will complain. And how do we then remove properties? We need to go through this concept of PSObject. And funny thing is, because I can actually show this, if I go through object, there's no PSObject, isn't it? If I go through get member, there won't be PSObject as well. By default, it's hidden. So we can do something like get member false. And false pretty much will show you all the properties, not even the ones that have been purposefully hidden by the developer. So you can access them and there is PSObject. So pretty much, and once we are in this part, you see, it doesn't tap. I try to tap, it doesn't tap. I try Control Space, nothing happens because it's hidden. But if I get there, then I can actually start resolving things. So something to be aware of, that sometimes things coming from nowhere or you can't find them, well, maybe they're hidden. You can then just do get member -false. But okay, so in that case, we go through objects, then it holds another property called properties, and now we can just call a method called remove and get rid of it. So if we try now, it's not there and it doesn't complain. Yeah, so something to be maybe when you do your if statements or checking, it's worth checking whether actually the property exists rather than if it holds any data. Because if I was just looking, or if it's there, maybe if it holds any data, there might be difference. Great. And how we can list all the properties? Well, there are a couple of ways. One is pretty much going after this concept I showed you. So you go object, PSObject, properties.name, they list it. Or if you rather go through the get member, you can specify the one node property and you can just expand on the name. So a couple of ways. I would imagine you prefer to go through the shorter version. Well, we'll see. Okay, so now as I said, hash tables are pretty much very similar to PSObject. And why would you want to use one or another? The main difference is, from practical point of view, that hash tables are faster for accessing data, because in hash table you can just go and say give me property with this value, while in PSObject we need to use things like where, so we need to filter them. So you might have instances where you have an object already and want to convert it to hash table, I actually have a hash table I want to convert into PowerShell object. So how can we do that? We can, for example, so we have a hash table already, yeah? So I just create it. So my hash table is, we see name, so that's pretty much how hash table works. We know it's hash table. So what we do then, we can pretty much just cast it into, we can create new object and then cast it into PowerShell custom object. So let's try, and it just does it. So it's fairly straightforward. If we already created hash table up front, we can just go and convert it. However, the other way, so if you want to go from the PowerShell object to hash table, is a bit more complex and we need to loop. So what's gonna happen? At the start, we just declare a blank hash table, and then, and if you are, yeah, again, if you haven't seen the video about hash tables, it might be worth for you to catch up on it. So just check this link. And then what we do, pretty much we grab all the properties, property names from the PowerShell object, and then we just create it. So we create that, saying that the new, in my hash table, the property name equals PowerShell property value, and that's way how we can create how we can quickly convert from PowerShell custom object to hash table. So let's try, and certainly it happened. So it's, you know, you can literally just copy paste this example and use it. It will work for anything as long as your hash table name and your object name matches. So what then? Now, one of the things that we can actually do, we can have methods. And methods is the concept that when you have your object with certain data, methods allows you to do something about that, some action, yeah? Rather than just storing data, you can actually do something about that data directly from the project itself. It could be as simple as adding values or displaying values. You can do something a bit more, but it's pretty much something that's gonna happen. It's gonna make it more, it's gonna make it dynamic, or change something, or return something, etc. So for example, what we can do, we can have this little method, and as you can see, I'm declaring this in the curly brackets. So in that case, it is a script block. Yeah, script block is anonymous function in PowerShell, and pretty much we just say, hi, my name is, and this name, and I like to sleep. So pretty much this is a special variable that tells the object just use this object, use value from this object. In that case, that'll be our name. So for example, if the name is Fiber, then we say, hi, my name is Fiber and I like to sleep. Okay, so remember, this is a special one that we refer to this specific object. Cool, so let's see. So what we do, we're going to pretty much add another member, but in that case, that's going to be a method, yes, script method, before we use script property. We're going to give it a name as say hi, and then the value will be that method we just created. It could be longer, it could be more complex, but I just like to keep things simple. So let's add it to our current object of Mr. Fiber. And now you see I'm going object.set hi and then brackets. And that's how you call methods pretty much, in the brackets. And in brackets, if there are any, you pass in parameters, or if there are not parameters, you just put brackets. So let's try it. And certainly, hey, my name is Mr. Fiber and I like to sleep. So if we go for object, we go say hi, go that way, we can see that this is in fact a method. Or if you, let's say, will go now through that way, we can see, you see that icon? That icon means it's a method. So certainly PowerShell is aware this is a method, it works. And I can now have my object and I can actually straight away process that information. If, let's say, I don't want to write external function or something like that, I can have it in the object itself. So we just had this example about converting PowerShell object into hash table, but for fun, we can actually have this shipped with the object itself as the method, isn't it? So I can just go, my object go, and then convert it to out as a hash table, yeah, or two hash tables. I can just have it as the method. So again, that's my parameters method, that's the name, and now we see the value is, now I'm creating the hash table, and then pretty much again like before, this PS project name for each, because in that case I'm using a method for each, and now we're saying the hash, and the hash is in that case this will be the property name equals this property name. That's pretty much it, and then we return it. Let's try that. That's my object. I mean, that's my method added to the object, isn't it? So now we added two. One is say hi, the other one is out hash table. And let's try this. And there we go. So if I just call object, I have a, so if I just call object, I have my object, but if I go object.out hash table, it on fly creates it on the hash table. So I don't even need to write this call, I can just have it there. And obviously I can still call my say hi method, so I can have multiple of them attached to one object. Great. Types. So what is a type? Because we have PowerShell type. And type is what specifies what this object is, how it should behave. It should create you a kind of contract that if, let's say, this is the type is string, like a text, then I can go and convert it in certain way. I can go parse things into it. Or let's say if it's integer, so it's number, then this type will then allow me to parse these numbers or out it as a string, or etc. Or if it's something a bit more complex, like ID object, you will have certain properties, etc., etc. In PowerShell, however, types are a bit more loose, so I can kind of create an object with certain type. I can use it as a type, but it will be a bit loose. So it's a bit more, it's down to me really to make sure it always happens. It won't be enforced, but still gives me quite a lot of interesting things to do. So first of all, if I check my object, we see this is pretty much system management automation PSCustomObject. So remember when we created it the first time, I put PSCustomObject in the square brackets. That meant that was this accelerator. Rather than me needing to type all this thing to create it, I just specified this one. But this is it. So what we can do type names, and we can see this is PSCustomObject and it's object, because pretty much everything is object as far as PowerShell is concerned, or in that case, Nest Framework. And now we can do this little trick when we go and we, at the very top, at the very front, we add one more property called KP cuts are awesome. You can probably figure out why KP, and this is just something, I don't know, very special name I wanted to give it. So if I now go after adding that bit and checking, see my type name, cuts are awesome. So what does it mean? What can I do with that? And this will be a bit more now advanced concept, but that's really where you can use it. So in that case, when I will declare the function, and that function will take certain parameters, and I can pretty much specify that I want this parameter, which is cat. That will be my type name that I just created. Yeah, it must be this type. If I will give you a string, a number, or anything, it will just PowerShell just go and say bugger off. It's not what I'm looking for. This is incorrect. So that way I can make sure the way what I'm receiving as the function, or in other words, what you're giving me, is of the specific type name. And therefore I will know what to do with that, because it's type, it will have certain properties and certain methods. Okay, that's just a bit more. And value from pipeline, because we can pipe it. But anyway, so we declare the function. And in the function, pretty much, if I'm passing that parameter, we're going to call my say hi function, otherwise we're just going to say that cats are awesome, because they're awesome. So why not say that? All right, so let's just call it, yeah? So that's my function, so I need to load this whole thing to memory. And now let's just call it, yeah? So invoke cats are awesome. And pretty much cats are awesome. Yep, that it does it. I didn't pass it. Now I will pass in my object of my cats object, which we know I've already updated the type to cats are awesome. So in that case, it should call get that root. So we have a cat and we have cats are awesome. Yep, it does it. And now I will just try to pass in the text, yeah, string of something. And now look what happens. It throws, because it's not of the right PS type name. I have this control. So if you write functions, this is one way how you can ensure, and you write your own objects or etc. That's one way how you can make sure actually this happens. This is how you can enforce it. So pretty cool concept, because the other way, at least I am familiar with, is to actually have a proper C# class, which is a bit more, well, it's absolutely different concept. This way we can fairly easily have that functionality within PowerShell itself. All right, so just for fun, let's create another object, another cat, that his name will be Whiskers. And here at the very top, I will declare it that this is actually this type name, yeah? Because before, if you look at it before, I did add it after creating the object. And this one, actually, I'm just declaring this at that part. So let's try this. And now I need to do pretty much my method again to it. That's why I said, when I told you this is a bit loosely coupled, that's why, because I cannot enforce it. At least I didn't find a way to how to enforce it. But anyways, let's say I am a good guy, good scripter, so I will pretty much write it nicely and will make sure it happens. So add the member, and now we can see when I actually execute it, it picks out the cat. So certainly it works per my object. And what else we can do? Sometimes, for example, in the Active Directory commandlets or SharePoint or networking, there's a lot of information is displayed there. It's hidden. Yeah, you have some part of information, but actually when you go and grab format list, it will give you a lot of more. And the same we can do with when we have the type date. Yeah, we have type name. You can use function called update type data. And then pretty much we can specify which one we want, like as awesome, and then that just the properties of our name and type. So in other words, I will hide the species. So let's try this. Okay, so now the list should be limited just to these two properties. And they are. Let's try another one. It certainly works because I specified of this type. But if I do format list, give me everything, gives me all. So another nice feature if you don't want to display all the information that is there, that's how you can limit it without any doing things like select objects or whatever, which might effectively change your data. And now, because I had that's pretty much would be like a third, well, it's not official, but part of it, because we did arrays, we did hash tables, now I do custom objects. So I thought how we can build this all together. And I thought that we can make I could write a little wrapper that we utilize effectively a generic list. You haven't seen, I didn't purposefully include that in the arrays lesson because this type pretty much requires you to specify what are you passing in the list. Yeah, when we created array list, you could just create new array list and just throw things at it, it will take them. Why when we use generic lists, we need to actually specify what is coming in. We could just say object, but it kind of defeats the purpose. And I'm showing you this one now because array lists have been deprecated for quite a time, and well, they've been deprecated but still working fine, so there's nothing wrong with them. But in case you want to actually go and take your PowerShell practice step further, just try to read about this, read that, because pretty much the concept is very similar. System corrections, generic list, and then in brackets actually what you're passing, if it's string, hash table, whatever, already other type is there, and we're just creating a new list. Yeah, that could be as well an array list if you want it, or even an array, but we don't, as we know, we don't do things with that in array because they're not designed for adding stuff. But anyways, that's my list. And that's my location, so that's just some very few cities I've went throughout the world in my life, why traveling was permitted. Well, it hasn't been that easy for the last couple of years, but well, let's see. And that's pretty much where we're going to call. And this is API. This API pretty much gives you a weather for free. You don't need to sign up to anything, create any keys, and it does it by default in this ASCII format. Actually, we draw a little sun, etc. So it's fun to work with, but also very straightforward case for us. So what we're going to do, we're going for each of these cities, check the weather, and by hitting this API, then followed by the city name, and then that format pretty much as it that want is as the JSON, because by default it gives you this ASCII pictures, etc., which it's really hard to process. This is just JSON. So we're going to hit that one, and when it happens, it returns certain properties. So for one, that's where we actually start doing our custom object. Yeah, so that's the construct that you will see very often, that you create an array. That you create an array up front, and then you will loop through your items. You will then, once you gathered all the information together, yeah, once you have all the properties from all the sources, in that case we just have one source, there could be more of them, then at the very end, you will combine this all like a one PowerShell object, yeah, with all the properties I want. So this is something what either I will pass on to the next function, or it's something I can actually return for the user. So what we'll do, we specify the city, then we grab the temperature, and as we can see, this coming from data, which is what's coming from the API. And that's pretty much just the properties I'm using for that. So I have temperature, we have pressure, and then once I've constructed this thing, I'm adding this to our array, our list, to that one. And once everything is done, I'm just displaying this list once. So I know this, maybe it's familiar, maybe not, but when I had to do it like a first or second time, I was really actually confused. How do I actually do that? How do I take multiple things and how do I actually build them into list? I could make a little shortcut and actually just, rather than adding to list, straight away display it. But in that case, if I wanted to take that output, I will need to actually go and explicitly put it in the variable. And it's much nicer to actually work with the list, with actually having an array. Okay, so let's highlight this all and run it. So we see what's happened. It pretty much checking whether for the city, and this is just how it builds the string. And if this concept is unfamiliar, check my video on the building strings. This was actually part of the whole course of PowerShell, but this is pretty much what happens here. And once we have it, let's display it. And there we go. So that's how we do. We have a city, we have temperature, and we have a pressure. Now we can see London pressure is fairly low today. That's why I haven't been feeling 100% today, but yeah, anyways, it's just the air pressure, so nothing wrong. Great, looks like we've done it. Well done. Let's sum up. There we have it, PowerShell custom object. I know I went slightly more advanced, but because a lot of concepts are similar to hash tables, I didn't want to literally repeat myself, provided you watch the hash tables. And maybe, actually I showed you something that you can use in your scripting practices. So that's kind of summarizes or concludes my series on lists and arrays and hash tables. So I will need to pick a new topic. If there's anything particular you're interested in, PowerShell or maybe in IT in general, provided I know about that, let me know. Leave me a comment, or that might help me. I will see, because I think because I passed this 500 subscriber mark, I can actually now start interacting with users a bit more, and by this I mean I can create posts or polls on the YouTube. So let's see if I can do. I will probably throw something. But yeah, if there's anything you are interested in, please do let me know. Please leave a comment, because effectively I'm recording this, but the idea is actually I want to bring more people to PowerShell, to using them, because the more people we have in the community, the stronger this language is, the more beautiful things will happen to it. And you never know, let's say, like if I'm looking at my example, I wrote a lot of the code and I never really got involved into any open source project, but I can contribute that way. I can actually make this video, so hopefully I can help others people, I can bring you along. So you never know, maybe you will be just the user, maybe you will contributing. So what I'm trying to say, the more users we have in the PowerShell community, the stronger the community is. And also, I know that just because we start using it, you start working more with code, we might actually make the general IT community stronger, because suddenly that opens you way more doors. So please do let me know. Leave this like or the dislike, or however you're feeling, and I hope I see you in the next video. Have a great day. See ya.